and welcome to Loaves to Legends, your new favourite history podcast brought to you by Sandwich Guildhall Museum. I'm your host, Gia, and I'm here with the rest of our lovely Loaves to Legends team to entertain, educate, and indulge you in all things big and small related to our gorgeous town of Sandwich. Shortly, I'll be joined by a second host of today, Lily, to give you today's episode. But before we get into that, I want to encourage all of you wonderful people to not just listen, but to get involved too. One of the things that we want to emphasize on Loaves to Legends is that this podcast is your podcast as much as it is ours. We have a wonderful online community where you can chat to other history-loving fans on our Discord, or you can email us any facts or feedback. The link to both the Discord and the email are in the episode description. Right, let's get into this. As already said, I'm Gia and I'm joined by Lily. Hi Lily.
Hello.
So Lily, do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself to all our listeners?
Yeah, I'm Lily. I've just completed a master's in heritage, and as part of that course, I went to do a placement in Sandwich Museum, and that's sort of how I got involved in this.
Brilliant. So welcome, Millie. I'm glad you're part of this project. I believe, is your master's now at time recording? Are we done? Can you relax now?
Yeah. I completed it on the 1st of September, and that is it's a great relief. I can't lie. It's really good to not have to worry about any work anymore.
Absolutely. You can enjoy and relax. Perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Well, on to today's episode. Lily has taken charge of this episode. She's researched and written it, and I will be reacting alongside you listeners as well. So, Lily, what are we looking at today?
So today we're looking at the story of a Sandwich-born child who was evacuated during the Second World War, early Second World War. I'm going to take you through roughly 70 letters between a child and her parents who sent her away during that time.
Brilliant. That sounds really interesting, and it's a lot more like, it feels like a lot more serious of an episode this time because it's delving into some quite like deep moments, especially when we're talking about the perspective of a child and her family. So I'm definitely really interested in this.
Yeah, and I think what's great about it is it kind of really puts into perspective sort of an experience, a real personal experience of evacuation, and it's something that I haven't actually ever seen many accounts of this. So it is a really fascinating series of letters, really. So first, I'm going to introduce the people that I'll be talking about. So the collection of letters begins with a little girl called June, who's born in 31st of May 1930. And she's born to a mental nurse, John Claude Cameron, and a bookkeeper assistant called Hilda Grace Cameron. These are the main people that feature in and write these letters, and it also includes letters from a lady named Urena Lewis, who is hosting June in Swansea during her evacuation period.
So, to clarify, when you're talking about evacuation, you mean the movement of children from their homes to areas of the country that were deemed safer to be in? So, like places that were less likely to be targeted by the bombing?
Yeah. Also, people other than children were also moved. So there were pregnant women, disabled people. And to give some context to Sandwich and Kent, in 1938, a year prior to the letters, the government had thought that they would get ahead of London and the surrounding areas flurrying to the countryside when the war got bad. And so they organised for places like Sandwich to take on evacuees from Gillingham. However, of course, a year later, Kent finds itself in quite a vulnerable position, being closest to mainland Europe. So yeah, Sandwich is a really unique place for this. On the 2nd of June 1940, 482 registered school children leave Sandwich to go to South Wales. I didn't know schools relocated during the period of evacuation, like an entire school is uprooted, such as the case with Sir Roger Manwood's school, where they relocated to a farm in Carmarthen, and it's unclear whether June went there, but she did visit, as evidenced in some of the letters, she did visit some of the teachers and pupils that had also moved to this place in South Wales. Most of the children that evacuated did return collectively in 1943. One mad thing about this is the fact that a lot of the parents wouldn't know for a hot second whether or not the children had even moved locations. Like the children from Gillingham, they went straight from Sandwich to Swansea. There was no returning home, saying bye to family. You went straight from where you were. Similarly, Hilda June's mum, mentions a few times that June needs to tell her if she's moved or not because they wouldn't easily know.
Oh, I don't know why. I've never even thought about that. The organization, how parents wouldn't know if they have moved. That's horrendous for a parent to then
Yeah,
not actually know where your child is.
I think that kind of puts in perspective the kind of trauma and the sort of like
Yeah.
imagine how uneasy that would feel as a mother and you don't know where your child is and that you have no control over it because that is completely,
Yeah.
war led. It's horrible. It's awful.
It is horrible. So fantastic context there. Thank you, Lily. How does June's story start?
This series of letters begins with a 10-year-old June, and during one of the first days of June's evacuation, the letter reads, "Dear Mummy, I hope you are keeping well. I do not like it here, so will Daddy come and fetch me? The nearest station is Gowerton. It is about 2 miles from where we are. Will Daddy ask Mrs. Ledner if she wants Mildred home, as she does not like it either? Please do it because I am with a nice lady but feel homesick. Give my love to Auntie Lucy and Daddy. I must close now. Please send for Daddy or come yourself with Auntie. Best luck. Come as soon as you can. From June." And this is the first of many letters between June and her parents and immediately sets out June's sort of resolute, absolute, strong character. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking for context there also. I just spoke about Mildred. Mildred is someone from Sandwich area that she also was evacuated. They live in the same house with this lady called Mrs. Urena.
Ah, well, that's heartbreaking. Because the context is also another thing to put in place that June is just 10 years old at this point, isn't she? So for her 10-year-old to just be calling for her daddy to come pick her up, and she's like, no, I must go home now. I don't like it. And knowing, obviously, as we know, that the war goes on for 5 more years, is so. This to be the first letter is definitely tragic. We're opening up the episode here on a sad note, but a realistic note to give to you listeners.
As you'll see sort of later, it becomes certainly a sort of point in which the parents, you can tell in their tone and their letters that they're becoming desperate because they are missing their child, they're worried about their child. And yeah, like you say, that really sets the tone of like, this is a desperate situation, it's dire, it's it's absolutely horrible. The second letter that is in this series is from Mrs. Urena Lewis, and she sends a letter one day later and clearly hasn't seen June's plea to return home because she says, "I'll expect you will receive your little girl's letter by now, which she wrote yesterday. I hope she is happy with us." Mrs. Lewis's writing reflects June's homesickness, almost acting as evidence for it, and she mentions how little June is eating and how shy she is, and the Camerons respond, suggesting waiting a while and to see if she likes it because the lady is nice. They say that to June.
Yeah. Oh, so I hope she's happy with us. That is sad, but it is the realistic, like what most of these kids are feeling. Like you're ripped apart from your family to live in a complete stranger. Luckily, I guess in a way she had Mildred, someone that she did know from the area, but even so, it's when you get your letter from your child begging for her daddy to come collect her, and then the next day you get a letter from the woman who's looking after her saying, "Oh, I think she's happy here, but she's not eating." You gotta be distraught as a parent. Like, how would you even react to that?
No, I know, and from the child's point of view, I remember going to sleepovers when I was like young, let's say 10, and having to come home early on the night and not even making it through the night because I was so homesick. So
Yeah, it's too much. Yeah.
if you think about it, these people didn't have cars, they didn't have easy public transport. There are points in this series of letter where they talk about coming down to Swansea, and they do come and visit at points. I think it's like twice during this period. But you can't just like up and leave because at this point, travel to Swansea from Sandwich takes an entire day. It's not just a really quick train for a few hours. That they discuss it and they say we leave at like 7 a.m. and they don't arrive until like 5 p.m. So like this is not, there's no quick solution here. There's no I'm gonna come and get you. There's nothing like that because
Wow.
it's not possible physically in the World War during this period. Anyway, June responds a day later saying, ignore that letter. But in the meantime, the Camerons have sent another letter. And this one is interesting because it's a response that's pretty heartbreaking. But it still holds, interestingly, echoes of that stiff upper lip British war values. Hilda writes, Dear June, I have got your second letter, and I hope by now you have received my letter, also your parcel. You must be brave and stay a little longer. Although we want you back, both Daddy and I know that it is better for you to be there, and you make Mummy very sad if you are sad. So cheer up and try to settle for a while, as Mr. and Mrs. Ledner want Mildred to stay, and they feel that you are upsetting her and wishes you were not together. You wouldn't want other children to know that you are not brave. Try and see whether you can help Mildred be brave, and then we shall be very proud of you. This letter is an example of how sort of embedded values of restraint and duty were during the war, and what we now call the stiff upper lip mindset. There's a strong sense of guilt being used here, and it's not out of cruelty, but it is a reflection of the era's belief in bravery, self-sacrifice, and not burdening others with your feelings. Feels like less like manipulation and more a product of the period. I find it heartbreaking because you can feel the love, and there is definitely, there is sympathy and empathy there, but there is such a pressure on every person writing these letters to cope quietly and continue to serve the war. This I think that letter kind of made me a bit sad. She is a 10-year-old child. She's sort of being blamed for Mildred's sort of upset, but yeah, as I said, it's a complete reflection of the time.
She's been given a job to do almost as a 10-year-old. The
Mm,
job being be brave and make
yeah.
Mildred feel safe and brave as well. And it is that stiff upper lip, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe if I was a 10-year-old, if I was told I have to be brave for other people, it would make me like puff out my chest and be like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
responsibility. From my experience, I actually work in a school outside from Fontaine Museum, and I know that the children work almost best when they're given just a job to do and a responsibility. They like that, so it definitely is that stiff upper lip, and also that you can do this. Take your mind out of the emotions and focus on what you got to do. For the mum to have to say that in the letter, you're right in the sense that you look at the letter. I think if you just look at it once, it looks quite devoid of emotion. But then if you delve deeper into it as you have, you can see that it's the mum trying, it's the mum really caring and missing and loving her child.
Yeah, absolutely. And one way that June copes is the home comforts that she receives during this period. So, where we've said that it's not easy to sort of pick up and run to your child in Swansea, they do send an awful lot of packages to June during this period. I did try and work it out how much it all would have cost, but there's a money converter online and it's very much not accurate. So I don't have the numbers, but I promise you there were many packages.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and one really entertaining one is June asks for a swimming costume for Mildred and a new one for her, and she literally, and this is what I mean by June's resolute absolute character, because she says, she ends this letter because Mildred doesn't have a swimming costume. She's like, "Can I have a swimming costume?" Literally ends it saying, "If you can't send me a bathing costume, don't send either." So she's saying, she's like, you can get one for Mildred, but if I can't have one, don't bother. Do not bother sending that.
Mildred cannot have one unless I have one as well.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
That shows her age. She's 10. That really does show her age there.
yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of like letters where they send fruit, for example, and by the time the fruit has arrived, it's like soggy and bad. And again, June's reactions, she is not happy with this. Like she's like, "What? You've given me these strawberries, and we've had to throw them away, and they're disgusting." And where this is, there are some like really sad points of these evacuation letter series. There are a lot of points that are active, quite entertaining because June is such a little miss. I love it.
She's such a character. Yeah.
She is such a character. On another level, and amongst all of this, while the war is going on, there are so many mentions of like everyday life that creep in, and it is a reminder that even though the war is happening, life still goes on. These people don't stop. In June, the month, they mention that their neighbours going gooseberry picking, or people in the town dying of natural causes or old age. And there's certainly a continued level of camaraderie and community. And I think that it's perhaps not as prominent in society today. Hilda Cameron, for example, mentions a Sandy and Teddy a few times, who we assume are staying with the Camerons, where she talks about how they're eyeing her up so she'll make dinner. She mentions an old lady who's staying with local farmers, the Laslets. She mentions Mrs. Bushel's unknown guests. She mentions Mr. Lewis, and Mr. Lewis also comments on her house always being full with guests during this war. And by the way, Laslet and Bushel are still Sandwich names, so perhaps if they're listening to this, they might know who we're talking about.
Oh, brilliant. If you do, listeners, if that's your family name or you know someone with the name Nasser and Bishul, like get in contact with us. You can email us at loaves@gmail.com. We would love to know like extra context around like this episode and all our episodes, so it's a great opportunity. But you're right, it's a perfect reminder of it is every day. And I think when we look at the history of World War II and we look at evacuation, that is something that definitely goes amiss. Like it's people got on, and that's where that is that stiff upper lip British values that you spoke about before, and the sense of such a strong community because you just had to get on every day, even if there's the war going on, bombings occurring, and you'll be affected to an entire different new countryside. You still gotta do your laundry, you still gotta like shopping, you still got
Yeah.
the winter cold or
Mm.
bullies at school. Like it's just every day.
Yeah, it continues. Also, because of the position of Sandwich, this town anyway, even though this is very early on in the war, Sandwich has been preparing for the war for a while now because they've had all those influx of refugees, is it?
Yes, yeah. In Sandwich, we had kitchens, so we had 4,000 Jewish men come and stay in Sandwich prior to or just before the war started. So yeah, we had been preparing for that, absolutely.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of makes sense that they are in amongst all of this acting so normal because they kind of have been in a war state for a lot longer than the rest of the UK because of the unique position and location Sandwich is in at this point.
That brings me to question then. So while June was away, how was the war affecting Kent as a whole?
Well, by the summer of 1940, East Kent is witnessing a significant amount of fighting in the sky as a result of the Battle of Britain, which was a defence initiative where Germany were planning on exhausting Britain's air defence with the aim of eventually invading the UK. And the Southeastern British Fighter Command Group was called Number 12 Group, and this was defending Southeast England and London and has a massive job of defending because Germany's strategy was firstly attacking coastal shipping convoys, and they changed their tactic shortly after this to the RAF airfields and infrastructure. That means that Kent is in a very vulnerable position because there are many airfields within Kent. So this is a period of turmoil within the southeast, and it's certainly reflected in these letters. In particular, there's a couple of mentions of crashing of the fighting aircrafts. In a short letter to June, John comments on the number of German planes going down in the local area and some of our own. And one of Hilda's letters, though, really sets the scene. And this is a really interesting story. It reads, "Last night I was hanging out some washings when I heard machine guns overhead. Then I heard a terrible row coming through the air. I thought it must be a bomb. I rushed into the shed just as a German plane crashed on the Dover Road about 1 mile away from our house. When I peeped out to see what had happened, there was a pilot coming down on his parachute. I was frightened and prayed he wouldn't land in our garden, but he slowly swayed away. It came down at Hackling, not far from where Minnie Frant lives. They took him prisoner. He was not hurt. I expect you would have laughed if you could have seen me run." Now, this happened on 8th of July 1940, and luckily absolutely no one was hurt. The plane literally just fell in a field nearby.
What story? Do we know anything about the person who fell from the plane?
Yeah, so I did some research, and the man in question is a man named Lieutenant Albert Streeburny. And from his point of view, he thinks he's done for the day, and so he's about to head back to Germany. However, his squadron orders him to escort another aircraft on a mission. And it's once he's back over Dover at around 7:30 p.m. that he realises he's wedged himself between these two British Spitfires, and he is eventually shot down. And it's at this point that he decides to bail out and he slows down the speed of the aircraft so he doesn't hit the plane tailing him. And then he drops out of the plane and continues on and crashes in a nearby farm. And there is another account of this in the archives at Sandwich Museum, and it is a very interesting account of the war. And in that record, there's a lady called Mrs. Patricia Pay who recalls that a stranded German pilot was attacked by an irate sandwich woman. So
The image
I
that comes out, attacked by an irate sandwiched woman.
yeah, exactly. It's great. I love it. So I am assuming in this case that if we think about Hilda Grace Cameron's letter talking about the man coming down, I think the irate sandwich women might be in this case Minnie Frant.
Oh, yes,
Kind of
okay.
connecting the two there. It might be, but that is the same account from the same day, those two pieces.
Oh, wow. What an interesting story that we can actually get from like the archive here at Sandwich Museum. That German soldier was almost done for the day, could have gone, and then yeah, was always come back. It's interesting. Just this is one of the things I kind of love about museums and archives, is that you can find these stories, these like little accounts that would be lost, and as you've done here, and incredibly in research, you've pieced two separate accounts and found out how they link and what a bigger part of the story is. And it's just incredible work that we were able to do because of our archival document.
Yeah, and there is a lot of like really, really good stuff in in Sandwich Archives actually. I ended up just reading a lot of random stuff, especially like I'm gonna go off topic. Don't worry.
That's fine, go.
No, I think there's many accounts of the pageants that happen in Sandwich yearly and stuff like that. Like there's so many good things. Go and check it out.
Yeah, guys, you should volunteer at the Sandwich Guildhall Museum, or you should definitely listen to this podcast more. And as we do a second season, we will uncover more of those stories for you guys. That's definitely just a sneaky little, yeah, you should listen to this podcast more. But you should,
Plug.
guys, you should. Anyway, back to June and Kent and the World War.
It's beyond this incident that we get a sort of real indication of the toll that the war is taking on this family, because on the 28th of July, Hilda describes her day in which the air raids lasted for 5 hours, meaning she spent the whole day in a shed. And then on August the 17th, Hilda says it's been a bad week in Sandwich with shrapnel and bullets all over the roads. And this is completely in line with the timeline of the Battle of Britain, because by the end of August, Kent have endured one full month of attacks by Germany, including a 10-hour day of attacks from Germany on August the 13th, which the Germans called Tag, which is Eagle Day.
10 hours in one day, it's intense.
As we say, like, Sandwich is such a vulnerable position.
But it's a difficult time. It's with so much bombing happening, 10 hours in one day, and then for Hilda to, as I say, spend 5 hours in the shed, and people spent days in air raid shelters. It's horrific and it's terrifying, and everyone knows of the trauma that was of World War II, but it's just having these personal accounts really does put it into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's reflected across Sandwich and the surrounding areas. There are accounts of people in Ash, for example, the village next to Sandwich, that watched the aircrafts in combat from the roof of the barns in the street. One man was watching and was wounded by spent bullets, and another was killed from the shrapnel in Ash. But again, where it is horrible, some of these people were just kind of watching it as entertainment. It's like these were big, like, oh, look, there's another blah, blah, blah in the sky. But it is a completely relentless time.
Yeah.
And I think that what makes it worse potentially for the Camerons is that June has now begun mentioning moments where bombs have started dropping in Swansea as well. So for example, that letter from September the 3rd, and I'll read it to give a picture. Dear Mum, I hope you are keeping well. Last Sunday we had an awful night. We had not gone to bed when it started at 9 o'clock. We could hear bombs dropping. I was very frightened. We went under the stairs when it quietened. Me and Mildred went out, got undressed, and Miss Urena took us upstairs after me and Mildred heard bangs. It was getting on for 10 when we went back to bed. We went to bed until 3 o'clock, and then Urena called us again because more bombs were dropping at 3:30. We went to bed, and the all clear went at 4. It had lasted over 7 hours. Hurry up and come and see me.
Your child's been evacuated to a safe place, and as we discussed, your child being evacuated is terrifying, traumatic enough, but you can at least relish in the fact that she's safe, she's away from the horrors that we have here. But then to get this lesson and read, no, my child's going through it too, it's almost think, well, what's the point? But the case being that Juna's not suffering from as many like nights as her home was in Sandwich, but that's gonna be a hard letter for her mum and her dad to read.
Yeah. So there's a really interesting document with information about the air raids in Swansea. It records the locations of the bombs dropping and how many people have died or been injured. It's kind of like a little spreadsheet with all this information about the bombings in Swansea from this time. In one column where it usually describes the locations of the bombs and raids, on the September the 1st and 2nd, the night that June is talking about just now, it simply says Blitz. To put this into perspective, where only up to 30 bombs had dropped on 12 occasions over a 3-month period, on this night there were 106 that had dropped. That is a pretty steep jump, you know. There were 33 killed, 37 seriously injured, and 71 lightly injured.
That's from, you can understand why they're calling it Blitz then. There's 106 bombs in one night compared to 30 over a 3-month period.
I feel like that must have been absolutely terrifying. I mean, it's terrifying regardless, but like,
The difference.
yeah, it is such a steep jump. And it's so important because up until early September, Swansea have very much been part of the phony war. From research, we can see that damage and injuries have been fairly minimal until this point in comparison to the rest of the UK. Thousands have sent their children to this safe haven. And then towards the end of the Battle of Britain, their children are now in areas where a blitz has taken place. So imagine the fear of just not knowing that your child is safe. Still, in spite of the blitz and in spite of moments like her brother's shop being destroyed, he's alive in this, in Urena's update to Hilda Cameron, she acknowledges the awful few weeks they've had. But she still says that June is safer there than she would be in Kent. So
106 bombs in one night, but she does raise a point where that is one night they have, whereas Kent and Sandwich are constantly being bombed. It is that horrible to think that, yeah, your daughter is in danger here, but she's still safer with us than she is with you, realistically.
yeah, and it is at this point as well, Hilda, June's mum, I think it is very clear that she's really starting to miss June. So from September the 22nd, June's mum says, I can't go another winter without you. Daddy will come and collect you. Seeing if Mrs. Ledner wants Mildred home too. And then on the 23rd of September, from June to Dad, when would you come and collect me? If it's worse than Sandwich, we'd be willing to come next summer. But then on the 29th of June, the mum says, Mrs. Ledner doesn't want Mildred to come home. Make up your mind if you're coming home. If you're not coming, we will come for a week. I must see you. Concerns about visiting costs, though. Urena also sends a lot of letters during this period, and her letters give a lot more detail. For example, they had a letter from the billeting officer discussing if they were to request to give June back, they would have to go to a tribunal, but it's the parents' wish, so it's fine. Then she talks about how if it gets bad again, they'll send June back, but because it will be the second evacuation, the government won't cover it, and they'll have to pay for that themselves, which would be okay because they spend so much now on June and her sweets. That's quite a risk, because if you're deciding to send your child back and knowing that you're not going to be able to get this chance again for free, you're going to have to pay for it. I think that's quite a gamble in this period, you know.
It really is, to have all the bombings that are happening in your town, Sandwich and Kent, but still really missing your daughter and knowing that she's still experiencing the bombings herself, just not as much. And you're right in that, saying that they are spending a lot of money and giving her parcels, so it kind of gives off the idea that maybe they're not that bad off with money, they can afford. But it is a huge risk, financial risk, and just risking their daughter's life in a way. But they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know at this point where in the country, if anywhere, is safe. So their daughter's missing them, they're missing their daughter. You get why they want their daughter back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're sort of weighing up the pros and cons, you know, you're desperately missing your daughter, and that is enough to warrant her coming back. And she does come back. She comes back a lot earlier than the other children.
Yeah.
Some of them are doing the whole war period up until 1943, and June only does a very short 6-month snippet of the war. It's not clear what happened to the family post November 1940, but because of the idea of the extra payments for the second evacuation, it's assumed that June didn't go on another evacuation. So there we are. I guess that's the 6-month snippet into June Cameron's life, from the summer into the winter of 1940. And this is such an insightful collection. And through the communications, we can experience sort of fragments of war life, not just from bombs, battles, and homesickness, but also from bedtime routines, soggy fruit, school. It gives a really well-rounded, well-structured insight into life and evacuation during World War II.
You're right, these letters are just rich with this information, and I feel like it's almost like a privilege that we get to take care of these documents and these letters in our archive. They weren't written to be read by us 80 years or over 80 years later. At least from a historical point of view, it's being provided with this extra information about, like you said, soggy fruit and swimming costumes, but only to both of us. You're adding humanity to the statistics that we are taught in schools and that we read in reports. And I think it's important to not forget the emotions that actually existed and the lives that actually were led. So yeah, this is a fantastic way of remembering who exactly these individual children were that were put on trains and sent across the country.
I mean, it's quite a unique privilege to have access to these letters. You know, it's not often, it's quite the rarity that you have a set of complete letters. You don't expect somebody to be talking about you in 100 years, and yet here we are talking about the Camerons and talking about June and Hilda and Urena. I think it's really important that we're able to talk about these and understand these insightful details about things like that. And, you know, although we don't know what else happened during the 1940s, we do know that June, for example, went on to attend secondary school in Canterbury. I did a lot of other research just trying to find more about June, and there wasn't much, but I went through archives and records, and I didn't see anything except for like her birth date and her death date. So we've only got this 6 months of her life, but that's a unique position to be in because we don't have records of many other people like this.
You're right, it's June lives however long a life she lives, and it's just 6 months that we know in fair detail of her life because of this. And I want to say as well, Lily, your research into this has been incredible, the effort you've put in to try and find the context and everything around it. You've been able to produce this narrative and the story to myself, the rest of the Loaves Legends team, and to the listeners about 6 months of one little girl's life. As you said, we don't know much about her life beyond that, but we can put together this story here, and it is incredibly important to discuss. So thank you. I want to say just thank you for your work you've done for this one.
I think it'd be really interesting if any of her family have any sort of further information about her or Hilda. Also, Urena, because I think Urena and her husband have a really interesting story as well. But again, they're people that I wasn't able to find much about. So it would be really interesting to have anybody come forward and say, oh, this is another insight into their life. It really also brings to life Sandwich as a place.
Yeah.
I moved to Sandwich, well, I moved to Ash last year. And so having read these little snippets, it really paints a picture. You know, there are some shops, like it's a wine shop now. It's the one that Hilda worked at.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in Sandwich. So it's fascinating to understand that a business that was once there and worked in by Hilda is still there in Sandwich today. That really brings to life the kind of rich history of Sandwich. If anyone gets a chance to read these letters, honestly, I read them for a whole day and it's just very interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. It's true. Sandwich, we are biased as a podcast because this is our town, this is where our museum is. But we have this podcast because we truly think that the history of Sandwich is something to share about and shout about. I think a lot of it's to do with we're an old town and we kind of hold close to our hearts a lot of these traditions. You're definitely right. Sandwich is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went and did a little tour as well. I drove past their house. So I wanted to locate where they were. It was fun. It was nice. It was, again, like I say, it just brings Sandwich to life of knowing we've all got something in common with these people, and that's that we've all lived in the same place, the same area, but just a century apart. I'm a history lover and I did a history undergrad, so a lot of people would say that I'm boring because of that, but I think it's so interesting.
Here at Loaves to Legends, we certainly can't say you're born because of that. Because we're nerding out with you as a whole team, and I'm sure you listeners, because you're listening, you've got to be nerding out too. Let's be real.
Exactly.
But yeah, thank you so much. This has been a really fascinating story, Lily. So thank you. It's been incredible.
Okay, so I've had so much fun. It's really nice.
Brilliant. Well, that is the end of our episode. So, for every episode, I ask our guests to ask one question to all you listeners at home. So, Lily, do you have a question of the week for us?
So in June's letters, she asks for a lot of sweets and a lot of chocolate and a lot of food and fruit from her parents. If you were evacuated, what would you be asking your parents for?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that one. So, if I was evacuated, I think I would. Okay, I'm imagining I'm a child here. I think chocolate digest. No, I can get chocolate digestive biscuits from where I am. I would say to my mum, I know we're rationing in the World War, but you need to make the carrot cake that you make and send me it. So I would beg my mum through letters, be like, please let me have some of your carrot cake. What about you?
I don't know. I know that Ash has a lot of agricultural food land. There's a field nearby my house that has really big beetroots and stuff. I'd probably ask for some really good homegrown food from one of those vegetable fields. I love vegetables.
Oh, fantastic. And then that you know they are your local, you know how good they are.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Lily. This has been a wonderful episode, as I said, to go through. I hope you've enjoyed your time researching and writing and presenting this episode.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you so much. And if anybody ever gets the chance to check some of these letters out, I truly recommend it. It's absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to say one more thing before we go to you listeners, but for now, goodbye, Lily.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
We just wanted to give a quick reminder to email us any feedback, comments, or interesting facts that you know or discover in relation to the topics discussed in today's episode. Just email us at loaves2legends@gmail.com or join our Discord server and be part of our online Loaves to Legends community. The email and Discord link will be in the episode description as well as on our website, sandwichguildhallmuseum.co.uk. With every episode, we'll be asking a question of the week on our Discord server. This week's question is, in June's letters, she asked for lots of sweets. If you were evacuated, what would you be asking your parents for? Join our Discord and have a discussion with us and other listeners and find out what our answers at the Loaves to Legends team are. But for now, goodbye from us, Gia and Lily. We have been Loaves to Legends, the history-based podcast from Sandwich Guildhall Museum. Thank you for listening and we'll speak again soon. Loaves to Legends is produced by Sandwich Guildhall Museum. Millie and Gia are the executive producers. Today's episode was researched and written by Lily and edited by Millie. Gia and Lily were your hosts today. Special thanks to Ian Pittaway for permission to use his translation of this music, and to Kat Batchelor for performing it. Thank you to Beth Stone for the episode artwork.